This week on the Aviators, Curtis is going to show you how to conduct an ILS approach. We've seen plenty of our hosts wear parachutes. Now we're going to show you a parachute for your whole airplane. And we're heading on board American Airlines 777-300ER to see how you can travel in luxury. Earlier this season, Curtis looked at how Nav Canada tests their instrument landing systems. The ILS is an integral part of the network of navigational aids that make instrument flight possible. For any career pilot, learning to fly under instrument flight rules and obtaining an IFR rating is an absolute necessity. But for private pilots, this may not always be the case. If you want to own an airplane to simply fly around your local area when the sun is out and the skies are clear, then by no means is learning to fly IFR a necessity. But if you want to use your aircraft to commute from point A to point B, more or less regardless of weather conditions, then you definitely want to look into an instrument rating.
Once you've decided to learn to fly IFR using your instruments to flying cloud, you're going to start out learning to fly the airplane at altitude. You're going to learn how to maintain an attitude, maintain an altitude, fly a heading, and even track an airway. But you're going to spend most of your time learning how to get back down to the runway again. There are a number of different types of approaches to find your way back to an airport, including a VOR and a GPS, but the most precise of all of them is an ILS. Instrument landing systems are designed to get you back to the runway in the worst of weather conditions. The concept's pretty simple, but as you'll see, flying one takes a lot of practice.
The first step in doing an ILS approach is reviewing the approach plate. An approach plate is an aeronautical chart that displays a specific approach to a specific runway. In this case, Curtis will be landing on runway 26 at Kitchener-Waterloo Airport. The Jeppesen approach plate for runway 26 at Kitchener-Waterloo gives Curtis all of the information he needs to conduct the ILS approach. This includes everything from the radio frequencies for the ATIS, approach control, and the tower, to the frequency of the ILS itself, and much, much more. After listening to the ATIS for Kitchener, Curtis contacts approach control, who gives him directions on how to proceed to the airport in preparation to land on runway 26.
Thank you, via Label cleared ILS runway 26, Shirley with the Yankee.
Curtis has been cleared to conduct an ILS approach to runway 26 at Kitchener-Waterloo via a waypoint called Libel. It's important to note that he's been cleared to conduct the approach, but not to land. On this approach, only the tower controller can clear him to land. Now, Libel is a waypoint or fix, a predetermined published geographic position from which Curtis should be able to follow a heading of 255 degrees direct to intercept the localizer for runway 26.
Butler Tower, good morning. Golf Juliet Whiskey Yankee, 3,000 feet direct Libel ILS runway 26 with Echo.
Juliet Whiskey Yankee, Roger, Waterloo Altimeter 3017, report Wellington on final.
Report the Wellington Beacon final at 3017. Thank you, Juliet Whiskey Yankee.
As you can see, one of the differences between flying IFR and VFR, we're flying in a day here where there's very little visibility in showers, and so we're not expecting to see airplanes outside, but I'm spending a lot more time inside looking at my instruments so that I can maintain my altitude and my heading and the attitude of the airplane.
One of the big differences with an IFR approach is that you will usually have a much longer final approach leg. When flying VFR, you'll usually enter the traffic pattern, proceed downwind, then turn base and final all within sight of the airport. When flying an ILS, it's not unusual for air traffic control to set you up on a 5 or even 10 nautical mile final. This may be done to facilitate traffic separation, but is also related to maintaining a 3-degree glide path as you descend.
The type of approach you fly when you fly an ILS has got a 3-degree glide path, which means that in round figures, for every 1,000 feet of elevation, you need to be 3 miles back. So in other words, when we're 6 miles back from the airport, we should be about 2,000 feet above the airport.
For reference, the GPS approach plate gives you a chart showing what your descent rate should be in feet per minute given your ground speed, in order to maintain that same 3-degree glide path. The approach plate also tells us that once Curtis passes Hames, he needs to be at an altitude of between 3,100 and 2,200 feet in order to intercept the glide slope. Intercepting the glide slope from below allows you to maintain your descent rate.
So I'm going to maintain 3,000 feet until I pick up the glide slope. We'll do our gump checks here. Fuel is on the fullest tank. Undercarriage, I have a wheel at the window, 2 in the mirror, and I have a green light. Mixture is coming forward in the event of a missed approach, and we're going to walk the prop forward in the event of a missed approach as well.
GUMP stands for gas, undercarriage, mixture, and propeller. This is an easy way to remember to check these 4 items as you set your aircraft up to land.
Waterloo Tower, Juliet Whiskey Yankee is Wellington final.
Juliet Whiskey Yankee, Roger, continue. Your number 1, runway 26.
Number 1, runway 26, Juliet Whiskey Yankee.
Once Curtis has the localizer and the glide slope, flying the ILS is a matter of keeping the 2 green diamonds centered on the white lines. The important thing to remember is that the ILS is really designed to guide you to the runway. The intended application of this, of course, is a situation where the weather is at a point where during the approach you can't actually see the airport.
So the way an ILS approach works is that the airplane flies itself down to about 200 feet above the runway. And at 200 feet above the runway, there's rules, and basically the pilot has to see the runway environment with enough fidelity that they can use their eyeball to land the airplane. There's very few ILS approaches where you actually land on the ILS approach. The rest of them take you to that point when you need to see something to land. And so what we'll do is I'm going to have my head in the cockpit until we get to about minimums. And when we look up, what we're going to notice is we should see some runway lights and some approach lights, which are all tools to help you find the runway on a very nasty night.
In this case, the plate tells us that the decision altitude is 1,255 feet, or 200 feet above ground level.
Okay, here comes up our annunciation that we're 500 feet above minimums, which means we're 700 feet above the airport in this case.
Juliet Whiskey Yankee, clear to land runway 26, wind calm.
Thank you, clear to land runway 26, Juliet Whiskey Yankee.
So I got my speed where I want it. Got my attitude is a good attitude now. I'm nose low. I've got the gear down and the flaps down. Once we get to a point where we look up and see the runway and I commit to landing, I'm going to go to landing flap and use that extra drag to bleed the speed for the touchdown. So 200 feet above, and generally I'm going to give myself a look at 100 feet above. If I don't see anything, I'm going to get my head right back down in the cockpit again until such time as I get to minimums. 100 above. Hey, look at there. There's a runway out front. We're going to go ahead and land. So we're going to select flaps 20. Deal with the trim, and at this point we're continuing visually, so we need to look at the instruments. On the left side of the runway you'll see the pappies there, the 2 red and the 2 white lights that indicate that I'm continuing down on the touchdown. That audio cue told us that we just went through minimums.
At this point, Curtis has passed the decision point and is committed to landing the aircraft. He's no longer using the ILS for guidance and continues visually, just like any other landing.
1,500 feet.
Lots of birds.
Waterloo Tower.
And there we are down.
Now there are several important things to note here. For one, not all approach plates look the same, and while they may be giving the same information, how that information is displayed may be different. In addition, approach plates are a guide. Depending on how you're being vectored by ATC, your approach may not be exactly as the plate describes. And this segment was not designed to be a how-to. We can't tell you everything you need to know about how to fly an approach in just 5 minutes. Hopefully, if you're interested in getting your instrument rating, this gave you an idea of the challenges and rewards that await you. But remember, flying an actual approach without a current instrument rating or an instructor present is downright dangerous, and attempting it in instrument meteorological conditions would be stupid and illegal.
It takes a lot of practice to learn how to fly IFR, but I've found it to be the most useful and rewarding rating I've obtained, and I hope you will too.
Throughout the course of this program, there have been many times when our hosts or crew have donned parachutes before going up in an airplane. This is a widely accepted safety precaution, and depending on where you are, may even be required to perform certain activities. But to use a personal parachute, you've got to first get out of the airplane, and you'll need sufficient altitude for the chute to deploy. This may not be possible if you're low to the ground or are spiraling out of control. In that case, a parachute that supports your entire aircraft may be able to save your life. And that's exactly the product Ballistic Recovery Systems, or BRS, have created.
The genesis of BRS was the development of a parachute system for light aircraft, initially for hang gliders, then ultralights, experimentals, home builds, and so on.
Boris Popov is the founder of BRS.
I was flying a hang glider, being towed behind a boat in 1977, and I miscommunicated with the boat driver. I wanted him to speed up. I thought he wanted me to slow down. We miscommunicated, my wing broke, and at 500 feet, I hear a snapping sound, my crossbar breaks, and I'm going into a spiral dive to my death, what I thought was my death. And all the way down, I'm thinking, my gosh, I've got all this time, why don't I have some kind of a parachute? But on the way down, I promised myself, this is insanity. I've got all this time, I'm spinning, why don't I have some kind of a parachute device? And as of today, we have 299 lives saved. So it's a dramatic story, it's a great story, and there's a lot of people that are alive today because of it.
BRS uses a rocket to fire that parachute away from the aircraft, where it can safely deploy. The whole process takes less than 2 seconds.
One of the obvious things about falling and spinning like that is you're pulling so many G's that I realized that even if I had a parachute device, a hand-deployed parachute device, I was pulling so many G's that the ability to get a parachute out into the airstream was pretty limited. Not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. It's a traumatic time to be going through. So I realized that you got to make some kind of a simple handle system or a button system where all the pilot has to do is activate the parachute and activate it quickly. The concept of a ballistic parachute, thus the name Ballistic Recovery Systems, came to mind, that we need to have a ballistic deployment method. And that's proven to be correct, that you need a parachute deployed quickly at low altitudes, which is where most accidents occur, and with very little difficulty on the part of the pilot to activate.
BRS wasn't necessarily the first company to try developing a parachute for an entire aircraft. However, they did figure out how to put all of the technologies together, including the complex process of packing the parachute.
We also realized that you can't put a 50-gallon drum in the back of a Cessna 150. It ain't gonna work. I mean, it's just not gonna sell, and it's too obtrusive. So we developed a pressure packing technique where we literally squeeze the air out of a parachute, and we reduce the volume of that parachute 50–60%, which is significant to the point that it's almost like wooden density. It's 20,000 pounds of pressure. And that squeezes the moisture out and makes the parachute much less obtrusive, makes it smaller volume, makes it much easier to deploy in an airplane.
The most well-known implementation of the BRS system is on the Cirrus SR-22. Since 2000, all Cirrus SR-22s have shipped with a BRS installed, and the parachute is a standard piece of equipment required by the SR-22's type certificate. BRS also makes parachutes that are available for home-built and experimental aircraft, and has received approval to retrofit the system to some certified factory aircraft other than the Cirrus. But with the safety record of aviation, many people would wonder why a parachute would even be necessary on a small aircraft.
You know, on the first impulse, people think it's, well, my wing's not going to come off or my tail's not going to come off. Of course not. That's not the most common cause of deployment. The most common cause of deployment is loss of control. And loss of control can come down to component failure, to pilot incapacitation, to weather, you name it. There's a lot of stuff that can cause you to lose control of your airplane.
As Boris said, the wings literally falling off of your aircraft is not a likely occurrence. However, as you can see in this dramatic video where it's believed this pilot exceeded the G limit of his aircraft, it is possible. And in this event, the BRS parachute unquestionably saved this pilot's life.
We're all human beings, and what my mantra is, we're human beings flying mechanical devices. One or the other is going to fail eventually. Give it time. You're gonna have a failure in one mode or the other. And that's what BRS is all about, trying to give you that opportunity to not make that a serious event.
Hi, I'm Rob Ryder. A fixed base operator, or an FBO, is a business at an airport that provides a variety of services to general aviation aircraft. FBOs may sell fuel, hangar space, flight training, maintenance, catering, or a wide variety of other services. Small operations may provide one or two services, while larger organizations may provide the full range. Small or large, the FBO can be a welcome sight after taxiing from the runway.
Last season, we looked at how one of the first passenger airliners, the DC-3, is still finding life more than 75 years after its design. While the aircraft was originally designed with input from airline pioneer C.R. Smith, Douglas made many variants of the aircraft over the course of production. This sort of variation on an existing design has become standard practice when it comes to modern airliners. The 737, the best-selling jet airliner in history, has gone through 9 different variations over its 45-year history, seeing changes to everything from the shape of its wings and the type of engines to vastly improved interiors. Now, by aviation standards and compared to the 737, the Boeing 777 is not an old design. But the aircraft has already seen several variants and substantial improvements, as evident on board American Airlines 777-300ER.
The 777-300, of course, it's bigger. This airplane's 33 feet longer, and it has 6.5 foot more wing on both sides. But I mean, the cockpit looks very similar to the 777-200, and it flies exactly the same for the most part, except the biggest differences are the bigger engines. This is the largest twin airliner in the world with the largest engines in the world. And the nacelle itself is about the size of the fuselage on the 737. We have a ground maneuvering camera on this airplane because it is so much longer. It helps us taxi. You can see the main gear on either side and the nose gear.
Jim Dees is American Airlines fleet captain for the 777 and their future 787 fleet.
The biggest advantage, particularly over the 200, it lowers our cost per seat mile because we have more seats, very fuel efficient airplane. So it does carry more cargo, more passengers, and more comfort than what we've had in the past.
This has been a really unique process for American. It's one of the first times that we actually partnered with a design firm James Park & Associates, which is based in the United Kingdom. So in collaboration with them and Boeing and a whole bunch of American Airlines folks, we really took a blank sheet of paper. We envisioned what our dream aircraft would be, and we started from scratch. We really wanted to base a lot of the design on hospitality trends because we recognize that our customers are on board these long-haul aircraft for up to 14 hours at a time. So we wanted this to feel home and familiar to them, but we also wanted it to be timeless and modern.
The 777 is a wide-body aircraft, meaning it has 2 aisles with seats on either side. The original wide-body aircraft was the behemoth 747. While still being built, many airliners have been able to replace their 4-engine 747s with the twin-engine 777 and are still able to cover the same or longer routes while being much more fuel efficient.
Of course, we can fly it with 2 pilots only if we were flying a flight under 8 hours. If we go over 8 hours, we'll carry 3 pilots, and over 12 hours, we'll carry 4 pilots. So in the 777-200, we have a couple of bunks behind the cockpit that are kind of stacked on top of each other. The 777-300 has a door, and it's actually up in the overhead over first class.
It's good to hear that the people actually flying the plane are comfortable, but I think most folks are wondering what it's like for the passengers on board.
Hi there.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Nally.
Thank you.
This is your seat.
Well, American gave me a little sample of their first class treatment. If you can afford the lap of luxury on your way to London or Sao Paulo, there are 8 first-class suites on American's 777-300ER. Not only does this include a 3-course dinner service and breakfast, but little things such as slippers and pajamas have been thought of as well. But probably the most important is an environment you can actually I think it's safe to say that when Douglas Aircraft and C.R. Smith put forth the concept of the DC-3, they had no idea that passengers would be seeing these sorts of luxuries little more than 75 years later. They also probably never pictured the tools pilots would have at their disposal. A few seasons back, I showed you how private pilots were using Apple iPads in their cockpits. Well, American has been the first airline to get approval to use iPads, not just on the 777, but across their entire fleet.
We were the first airline to get approval for the iPad, and this was the first fleet, the 777, to get that approval. And we use them right now for all of our Jepson charts on board, so it's really reduced the weight and saved us a lot of fuel, actually, because we've reduced from about a 40 to 50 pound bag to a much smaller bag where we only carry the iPad. And actually, we're the first fleet in the world. We just got approval from the FAA where we don't have to carry the QRH, the Quick Reference Handbook, because we have the electronic checklist on the 777. So that pops up. We have a backup QRH on the iPad. So all of our manuals, all of our checklists, except for the electronic checklist on board the aircraft, are on the iPad. If you'll see on the 777, this is where normally, if you purchase an EFB from Boeing, it would sit right here in this case. So we don't have those in this aircraft. But to get the initial approval on this airplane, we actually went with a very high-tech Velcro, industrial strength Velcro to hold it there. And it works actually very well for us because it keeps it in place. It doesn't move. It's right there when you need it. And it's very easy access. You can look right down. Some of the other aircraft using ram mounts.
For those of you familiar with iPads in the cockpit, American has their own Jeppesen application that holds all of their airport diagrams, approach plates, SIDS and stars, and so on. And for the reference manuals, just a good old PDF reading application, with the advantage of being able to search for words or phrases instead of thumbing through an index. The 777-300ER also marks American's transition toward newer, younger aircraft, with the hope of becoming an extremely fuel-efficient and cost-effective fleet.
So these new airplanes are up to 20% more fuel efficient than some of the older aircraft. You have new airplanes, they're under warranty sometimes. It costs much less. They're in the hangar much less, so we can fly them much more, get our passengers to where they need to go. And it's just great getting in a new airplane. It smells like a brand new airplane, and it rubs off on everybody, the excitement. It's been a tough 10 years in the airline business, and now got a great deal of optimism because of it.
Seasons 1 to 4 of The Aviators are now available on DVD and Blu-ray. For more information on today's segments, visit www.theaviators.tv. From our official home at the Whitman Regional Airport in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, we'll see you next week on The Aviators.